So good morning, good afternoon, good evening all. Welcome to this webinar, Hey Car, What's Next? Thanks for joining us. Before we start, a little bit of housekeeping. This webinar will be recorded and it'll be made available to catch up in about a week's time. Over the next hour, we'll have an introduction to the market, a demo from Sensory, and a panel discussion covering several topics, including the history of voice in vehicles, the role of LLMs, edge versus cloud-based AI, privacy, and more. And importantly, we want to hear from you. Please put your questions for our panelists in the Q&A section, and we'll do our best to answer them during or after the panel discussion. So let's dive in. Firstly, I want to introduce our speakers. I'm Peter Cooney. I'm CEO and founder of SER Insights. I've been tracking, analyzing, and commenting on technology markets for almost 20 years now. Over this time, I've covered diverse topics, including voice, audio, sensors, connectivity, and more, across many different device markets, and more recently, a real focus in automotive. Over to you, Todd. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Todd Moser. I'm the president and CEO of Sensory. We're a voice AI company, and there's a lot of voice AI companies today, but we're really quite different than the rest. We specialize in doing everything on device, and we have a full stack of different voice technologies, from biometrics and wake words to full-blown intelligent assistants that run on the edge. We've shipped in billions of products over the years, and we've probably been around longer than anybody in this space. So it's nice to be here. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Todd. And over to you, Ephraim.
Thank you, Peter. I'm Ephraim Shimali with MediaTek. I look after the automotive business unit. At MediaTek, we are powering millions of devices. And in the last few years, we decided to focus on the automotive. So I'm leading the automotive business unit, and I'm looking forward to having the conversation with this panel to talk about AI and voice in the car.
Thanks, Ephraim. And over to you, Roman.
Hi, everybody. My name is Roman Wild. I have more than 20 years of experience in software development under my belt in consumer electronics, financial services, and the last 10 years in automotive with BMW. I relocated last year to the BMW technology office in Mountain View in California. Before that, I was running in Munich our development teams working on our intelligent personal assistant. Yeah, happy to be here today.
Excellent. Thanks, Roman. And Jeff.
Hey, thanks all. It's great to be here. I'm Jeff Rogers. I'm Vice President of Sales and Marketing with Sensory. Been working with Todd at Sensory from the beginning, and my focus is on licensing our technology into automotive, along with a lot of other markets as well. But certainly today our focus is on automotive. Great to be here.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Jeff. And okay, so first of all, we're going to kick off with an overview of in-vehicle voice. The infographic you can see on the screen is extracted from a recent article that was written by me and published in EU Times. I don't know if anyone's read it yet. I'm sure a few of you have. If you haven't, please go ahead. And if you've got any questions or comments, I'd really love to hear them. So automotive voice control has been available for more than 20 years. Early systems were rigid and capable of basic commands based on specific phrases. So the user had to learn what those phrases were. The rise of platforms like Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant, Apple Siri in homes and personal devices has created a demand for conversational voice systems in cars, where hands-free interactions are seen as both a safety feature and also a convenience. Today's systems have evolved into voice platforms and perform more advanced tasks. However, they still fail to meet consumer expectations for natural, intuitive experiences. And as a result, adoption remains low, with many users abandoning voice assistants after initial trials. The advent of large language models is transforming automotive voice technology into intelligent assistants, capable of understanding context, managing complex tasks, and enabling multimodal interactions, so bringing in voice, text, images, and video. Edge computing enables fast offline functionality with better privacy, but has limited LLM processing power. Cloud-based AI provides richer models, but introduces latency, connectivity issues, and privacy concerns. So a hybrid approach is emerging as a solution. In my opinion, automakers must decide whether to keep data in-house or share it with third-party platforms. Retaining control unlocks new revenue streams, such as personalized services, while also safeguarding user privacy and enhancing product development. So what does the future hold? Well, we're going to talk about that a lot more over the next hour or so. But in my opinion, voice technology powered by LLMs will move beyond basic tasks to manage complex multi-layered interactions. Automakers who prioritize integrated voice solutions while controlling data and privacy will lead the future of mobility in software-defined and autonomous vehicles. So that's enough from me. It's just a quick overview. Let's hear what the experts have to say about this, and let's learn more about the use of voice AI and future trends. Next, Jeff Rogers is going to give us a short demo, and then we'll move on to the panel. And before we do that, just remember, please add your questions to the Q&A section. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. I know we're talking about Hey Car, what's next, but I did want to, and for those that haven't seen what we're doing right now in automotive, show what we're doing right now. So all of this runs in vehicle, on device, and in fact runs on our partner here, MediaTek, on their hardware. And so I don't need really expensive, powerful GPUs. I can run all this at the CPU level. And again, it all runs on device. And what I want to do is just spend 2 minutes here and just show you some rapid fire examples of what we can do. So let's start with our wake word here. And again, we can customize the wake word. In this case, I'll just use our standard one here. Voice Genie, turn off parking sensors.
Disabling parking assistant.
So super fast, easy, and again, it's all running on device. Voice Genie, turn on front seat warmers.
Turning on front seat warmers.
I was at an OEM the other day, and they said, hey, I call those butt warmers. And I thought, okay, well, that's a fair comment. Voice Genie, turn on front butt warmers.
Turning on front seat warmers.
Voice Genie, it's too warm in here.
Lowering temperature.
Voice Genie, I want to listen to 106.5 FM.
Tuning radio to 106.5 FM.
Voice Genie, slow down the wipers.
Lowering wiper speed.
This is great because I don't have to memorize scripts and what I have to say. I just speak naturally. Now, we can also do what we call smart wake words. So here, instead of always requiring the wake word, I'm going to have it after leading silence. So make a quick change to my settings here. So now I can just say things like, Voice Genie, open the front windows.
Opening the front windows.
And open the sunroof.
Opening the sunroof.
Set the temperature to 67 degrees.
Setting temperature to 67.
So here I don't have to say the wake word each time. And again, because this is full speech to text, I can say things like, Voice Genie, send a message to Peter. Thanks for hosting our webinar. This will be a very interesting discussion today.
Sending message to Peter.
And then you can see it's actually going to try and send that message. So this is what we're doing right now, but let's talk about what's next in cars. Back to you, Peter. Peter, you're muted.
There, it happened.
The start of every conversation.
Exactly. So yeah, again, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. I never received your message, but anyway, thanks for everyone to be here. Let's start off with the panel discussion. So we're going to go through this in the next, I don't know, 20, 40 minutes or whatever it takes. Firstly, let's discuss current systems and challenges. So the first question for the panel is, voice control has been available in cars for over 20 years, evolving from simple command-based systems to today's more advanced voice assistants. How have these developments shaped customer expectations, and what challenges remain? particularly in driving long-term engagement and preventing users from abandoning in-car voice systems. I'm going to pass this to you first, Ephraim.
All right. Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Jeff, for the demo. You guys did a great introduction. We went from command-based control of the car to a more natural language processing, which is what Jeff said. You don't have to say a specific command. And this is kind of what the technology is today. As a semiconductor supplier, we are at the very front end of the supply chain. So we have to look down what the cars will need, what the customers will need 3 years down, 5 years down, all the way down to 10 years. So in today's technology, we tend typically in the automotive industry to follow what happened on the phone and on the PC. My background, I was in the telecom industry for a long time, in the mobile industry, smartphones. And in the car industry, typically the new technologies that are related to the IVI comes from the other areas, except the framework is different and the environment is different. You are sitting in a car, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, typically doing one task for the driver, which is driving. A passenger is also sitting there, typically facing the front, passengers in the back. So we have a different environment. And what we are preparing for in our chipsets and our technology is to be able to have a much more interactive interface to the customers, to the users of the vehicle. That's when you are in the vehicle. For the driver, for the next few years, we still expect the driver to drive, maybe not all the time. If you have a level 3 or a level 4, the driver might be driving anywhere between 10% or 90%, depending on where you are. Level 5 will be a very different experience, but all the way up to level 4, the driver is still primarily focused on driving. So any help that the speech, not just the recognition, but the speech environment. So you have cameras in the car, you have cameras looking outside the car. How can the car help the driver? For the passengers, it's a little bit different, right? A passenger is sitting there, probably bored, listening to music, playing games. That's what we do today. But can we have a better user experience? And the technology in the car with voice, we can control where voice is listened to and broadcast. So a driver can speak and listen without having to have a headset or microphone attached to them, while the passenger, the right passenger, will have that same, what we call a sound bubble. And the same is true with the rear customers. So voice interaction will be a lot more useful in the car than in other areas. If you are in the office or if you are on the road, if you are like on the street walking, you don't have that sound bubble. That technology is available in the car while still allowing you to watch and listen to people in the car and things coming from outside the car, somebody honking, an ambulance, and so on and so forth. So the user interface for the car, the best user interface in the car, as a matter of fact, is voice. Your eyes are busy, your hands are busy. We've gone completely crazy with screens right now. You have full panoramic screens. You're going through many menus, very unsafe. So we really foresee the voice to become the primary interface to the car. We just saw the demo, and that's great to control the vehicle. But the next generation voice interface will be much more advanced. The car can request something from you. What we just saw right now with Jeff's demo is I put a query, I get a response back. In the future, it'll be a two-way interaction where the user can query or the car itself can actually give the user instructions, give recommendation based on what they see in the vehicle. A camera is looking at the driver might be falling asleep. The car can come back and say, hey, would you like me to change that FM station you are listening to? Because you look sleepy, maybe I can do something to help you be awake. Maybe I should be able to ask you if you'd like to change the temperature. It's a little too warm for you and you look like you're sleeping, right? So the car can now suggest, right? Maybe I can request, hey, do you want to stop at the Starbucks coming up in 2 minutes here, get some coffee? So you can see it's not what we just saw in the demo, but rather more of a two-way interaction. And that's what we're preparing the system, the technology, the AI, the capability to be able to support those kind of user experiences.
Okay, good, makes sense. I think you wanted to chime in there, Todd.
Yeah, I mean, Ephraim, you've said a lot. I want to go back to kind of the original question about expectations and challenges. And I think, Peter, in the early introduction, you mentioned sort of the dissatisfaction that's historically happened. The JD Power ratings have confirmed this. And one of the big challenges is now expectations with LLMs are going up. So there's a lot of growing expectations. And there's two big challenges that we see. One is in a car, it needs to run on device. And two, we've got to get rid of hallucinations. There have been studies that have shown that people are more willing to accept errors from people than they are from AI assistants. So in fact, in the demo that Jeff showed you, it actually is a micro language model that uses transformers, but it's deterministic. So no hallucinations ever happen in that. And we have other small language models that I'll talk about later. But I think the big challenge is really removing those hallucinations and getting that interactive voice experience that everybody in the world's now getting used to with LLMs.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing, Todd. I wouldn't go that far to say it's being abandoned. I think it's quite the opposite, but maybe that comes also with the job. Because at the BMW technology office, we spend a lot of time investigating and trying out what's happening in the industry. And I would say it's exactly that effect that you see in the IQS ratings or results. That basically, if you look back, coming from our E65 in 2002, 7 series, we launched our first voice control. It was actually still a separate or a separate silver box, a separate ECU in the vehicle. Then we had a big leap with natural language understanding and more digital assistants coming up. Then again, we were catching up. And in 2018, we launched our first intelligent personal assistant, as we still call it today. And I think now with LLMs, we are seeing the same effect that's happening. So I think this is more the reason for that. I wouldn't say that it's being abandoned. No.
Yeah. But there's lots of improvements. There's lots of improvements, and so let's move on to talking about LLMs. The introduction of large language models has opened up lots of new possibilities for voice systems. So how do you see LLMs transforming voice assistants in automotive, and what unique challenges do they bring to this space? Over to you, Todd, first.
Sure. Well, LLMs are hugely transformative, and generative AI in general. Man, this is a bigger transformation than the internet. It's amazing what's going to be happening in cars, not only for natural language car controls, excuse me, but also for entertainment and for education and making your driving more productive. What's really interesting is the LLMs are improving at an exponential rate. So I think we're all familiar with Moore's law. About 6 months ago, they came out with a Moore's law for LLMs, and they said that it was doubling in performance every 7 months. And they just redid the study based on the latest information. It's now doubling every 4 months. So it's incredible the rates of improvement that's happening. And it makes an interesting challenge for the automotive manufacturers because you want to get the latest, greatest, you want to get all the benefits of the new models as they're coming out, and you want small language models. So there's a lot of activities that are going on to make those models get smaller and smaller. And as they're getting better and bigger, they're also getting better and smaller. So everything is working in the automotive manufacturer's advantage in that sense. And what becomes really critical is getting the architecture right. Because if you think through the architecture and you set that up, then you can just swap in and out models as they become available. And that architecture is similar to what Jeff showed. You have a very low power wake word that's always on and enforces the car's brand. You have the speech to text on the car that not only helps in privacy because you're not sending off the voice, but it also creates a much lower bandwidth if you want to send it off to a cloud. Then you have a small language model in the car that can handle a variety of functions, certainly car controls, but possibly more information, access, entertainment things as well. And then you can have a large language model that you access externally.
Yeah, totally. I agree. I just would divert the discussion a little bit because, in my opinion, yes, the technology became very capable, but I would question, is it actually right now in the vehicle, is it more powerful? So I think this is the biggest challenge, actually turning this capable technology into really powerful products that have benefits for the customer. I think this is the real challenge and the struggle of the industry right now. So setting up the right scope, defining a good user experience and these kind of things. But also at the same time, we should not forget about the basics because still there's like wake up word performance. ASR is still a challenge. Think of having French street names in an English system, for example, or when you set the system to English. So there's still lots of basics to figure out. Safety, like you said, hallucinations, um, um, yeah, latency, all these kind of things. So that's why I would dampen the hype a little bit because yes, the technology is there, but there's still lots of basic work to do to make it fit in the vehicle. I think this is also what we are seeing in the industry right now.
One question from the audience was asked: Do we think that Android Auto and Apple CarPlay are going to integrate these language models into their product?
I can take a stab at this answer in both contexts, in the LLM question that Peter asked, and then the question that just came in. The projection, which is basically Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, the phone does not have access to what a built-in system in the car will have access to. When you talk about running AI in the car, and LLM in particular, today, the technology that MediaTek is putting out there, we can run a 12 billion, 13 billion parameter model. The data that can be collected from the car, specifically about the front right brake, always being collected, always learning left brake, right brake, rear, right, temperature, seat, so on and so forth. You have gigabytes of data being generated constantly in the car. So we have to have those models running in the vehicle itself. And you cannot transfer them to the phone. The phone typically does not have that capability. And that's why the experience in the car will be different. Now, that doesn't mean everything will be running locally in the car. You still need to have access to the cloud where, a lot of data, terabytes of data has been collected in the cloud, and it'll be a hybrid, a combination of both, where we will need to run semi-large language model. Like I said, I don't know if a 12 or a 13 billion parameter model is considered large. Probably not. Typically, it's 100 plus to start talking about large language model. And we're going to see more of a hybrid, one running in the machine, in the car, with access to all the sensors and all the information in the car and surrounding the car, plus what's available in the cloud. And it'll be more of a hybrid model.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of just the parameter sizes, we're looking at 1 trillion parameter models in the cloud. We're doing small language models with as little as 2 billion parameters. And we're getting down to our little micro language models that have hundreds of millions of parameters. So those are getting quite tiny. In fact, the demo that Jeff showed, we can run that with 35 megabytes of memory.
Yeah.
Impressive.
No, I would just, going back to the original question from the audience, for sure this will be integrated and it's coming. But again, I would highlight that those things and models integrated in platforms will be great for very generic tasks. But then again, vehicles are very specific. And I can just give you one example. We have several functions regarding to speed limits. So we have speed limit warning. You can automatically take over speed limits. We have a speed limit assistant. So lots of very specific terms that maybe also even the customer doesn't know. And the LLM for sure maybe also doesn't know. So I think still those will be great for generic use cases, but still there will be special models and a lot of work still to do for OEMs.
I would give odds that Alexa Plus shows up in a car. That's their new large language model, Alexa. And on the Google side and Android, it's a really interesting thing right now. Google is in court, and what the courts decide about what happens to the future of Android and Google is still up in the air. So there could be radical changes in that whole ecosystem.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So this all leads in really well to the next question, the next subject. What about edge versus cloud-based AI? So as we just talked about, there's a hybrid approach. The debate between edge computing and cloud-based AI is kind of central to the future of in-car voice systems. So what are the key trade-offs between edge versus cloud, and how might automakers strike the right balance to address things like latency, privacy, and performance? Ephraim, if you want to kick this off.
Sure. I touched on it a little bit, and the question came in also at the same time, where we talk about getting data in the vehicle, the gigabytes of data that is collected on an individual vehicle by vehicle basis. And the question came in, does the user really need to know if he needs to know the temperature of the brake? Yes, maybe some nerd. I'd love to know that. I don't know why, but it's something interesting for
Ask the
me.
BMW M driver. Yeah. Would
Yeah.
like to know on the racetrack.
But that's the exception, though. For most people, the AI probably wants to know, right? So that might not be shared with the user unless somebody wants to go dig deep into the car just to learn about performance. But that data that's being collected constantly and teaching the car, right? This is the learning portion of AI. This has to be done in the vehicle because you cannot upload gigabytes of data every time you're driving your car. Think about the cameras, the LiDARs, all the sensors. That's gigabytes of data collected constantly while the car is driving. So we have to have that kind of performance in the vehicle to process that data. Now, once that data is synthesized, a small portion of it can be sent up to the cloud for a larger model to be created. We have BMW here with us in the group with Roman. What if BMW wants to know how all of their 3 Series are doing, right? I want to know how my 3 Series is doing while I'm driving at the moment. But Roman and BMW might want to know all the 3 Series, all the 3 Series in the Phoenix area with 112 degrees, or all the 3 Series in Alaska running at -12 degrees, right? So each piece of data might not be relevant, and that's the whole thing about AI. People need to know information as an aggregate. And that's why we see that hybrid model. Things running in the car, practically speaking, I will give some numbers, 10 billion parameters plus or minus, that's reasonable for a car. But then the terabytes and the of data will be running in the cloud. And we will see that hybrid model.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, for sure, this will be hybrid. I think arbitration is key. You mentioned this, Ephraim, especially again with my product view on this. It will be very important to also do this in a clever fashion because the vehicle is moving. This is also something that you need to sometimes realize when you go into the automotive industry. So reception is spotty. You do not always have cloud connection. What happens if you start a fancy cloud-based use case and then suddenly you hit a tunnel or just have no reception anymore? So this is important. And also, I think updatability is important so that we can also still update models and software in the vehicle. And maybe as a last point, specifically interesting maybe for Ephraim, is that we have longer product run times, right? Our products are in the field very long, and it's very difficult to predict also the capabilities that we will need during the lifetime of a vehicle. So these are the topics that keep us busy.
Yeah, I
But
certainly
you wanted to say, yeah.
I certainly agree that with both Ephraim and Roman, that hybrid models are the future. It's really the only architecture that makes sense. Roman's totally right in saying that you need to be able to do things at any point in time. You can't lose it. And Ephraim's comments about the data usage are dead on correct. We didn't touch on agentic use. In fact, that's the trendy word that we haven't even talked about yet. But if you think about agentic functions, which, in my mind is really just going onto the web and clicking buttons and filling out forms and these kind of things. That can be done with a small language model in the car that reaches out to the cloud with agentic functions, or it can be done in the cloud. So there's some hybrid solutions where you actually have a choice of doing either. I'm a big believer that you put the speech to text on device. What's been found is that actually the large language models that are voice in, voice out, they're based on way less data because there's a lot more text data than voice data. So they tend to not perform as well as voice encoding off the LLM. But the other really good reason to do it is that voice is a fraction of the 10 times the bandwidth of text. So if you're sending a text message to the cloud, your costs are going to be way, way less. And you'll even be able to transmit with 1 bar, whereas I think voice always needs 2 bars. So
Yeah,
it's a
totally.
lot of advantages of hybrid.
Yeah, totally. And then, for example, to lower your window to set the temperature to 20 degrees, you don't need anything in the cloud if you do recognition and these kind of things on the vehicle.
Yeah, the car controls for sure have to be on device.
Yeah.
Hey, question from the audience. This is a question for Roman. Question is, are you seeing a desire or need to have access to AI from everyone in the cabin? For example, in the rear seats, or is it just primarily the driver or the front seats?
So we truly believe in the idea of a companion, and for sure this will be interesting for every passenger because there will be, if you imagine the car is driving yourself, you might be in a laid back position, you cannot reach the screen, so therefore voice control will become more important. We still believe that at BMW. Also, we call it shy tech, so that we actually think that you will have less screens, less buttons, and it will be very, concealed, the technology. So, and then again, also in the passenger seat, you will want to control the media on your screen, on your theater screen. You want to control the cabin, where the ride is going. So I truly believe, yes, it will be relevant for all passengers, and maybe, who knows, even from the outside.
Does anyone else have anything to add to that? Let's move on to the next thing. So we've talked about all this data, how we're going to control. Is it going to be in the cloud? Is it going to be local? And so on and so forth. But what about data privacy? So data collected by in-car voice assistants is obviously very valuable, but it does come with concerns around privacy and control. So how can automakers effectively manage that data ownership, safeguarding privacy, and also unlocking new revenue streams, as well as improving the car performance? Over to you first, Roman, please.
Yeah, of course, this goes to me. It's a tough question. I would say it's, of course, of utmost importance, especially for a trusted brand as BMW. And I would say in general that the topic is twofold. So on one hand, you have the whole technology aspect and security aspect, and probably we could do a webinar on this alone. We already mentioned that you can have data on board. There's encryption, of course, private cloud computing, and many more technologies being developed. And this is, rapidly changing. But I think the most important thing is, on the other hand, like I said, it's building up this trust so that people are willing to give up information, because it's just the fact that systems can only be as intelligent as they know about context and know about the user. So I think the biggest challenge here again is building a product and the user experience. You have to convey why you are giving up certain data, what's happening to that data, and what is the benefit out of sharing this data. For example, right now already you can share your calendar is stored locally, and this would give you the benefit that your car knows your next destination, can set up your next destination. So I think this is basically the two dimensions of this question. And yeah, one just needs to be worked on and always keeping pace. And the other one, I think, is the more tricky one, how to educate and how to make good products out of that.
who wants to add to that?
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I would say, yeah, Roman's got the two dimensions right. You've got privacy versus the benefits of giving up your privacy. And there can be a lot of benefits of giving up your privacy in terms of much improved personalization, where my car knows me, or whatever the device is knows me. Historically, what we've seen, and not just in automotive, but across markets, is that really you give up your privacy and you get a free app in return. That's been kind of the model. And in terms of what we might like to see in the future of really intelligent ads, not stupid ads, the ads that you want to see, that hasn't quite happened yet. But there's certainly, I predict there will be a future where we get ads that delight us. I'm a vegan, and if I'm driving along in my car and it's near noontime and there's a good vegetarian restaurant coming up, yeah, the car tells me, hey, Todd, it's time for you to eat. And here's this 4-star vegetarian restaurant. That's a benefit. So,
Is this
it can have a
advertisement?
lot of advantages.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Roman.
Advertisement? No, I'm just saying, is this an advertisement, or is it just like a very good recommendation and you wouldn't even see it as advertisement?
Yeah, exactly. The ad disappears, even though the rev model might still be there for different players.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll add something to it as well. There was a case that just came up last week that I was reading about. When you are in your vehicle, are you in public or are you in private? When you're in your home, it's clearly private, right? When you're in the car and there you have glass all the way around you, are you really in private? If you do something, you make a face, or you do something worse in the car, right? You're expecting the car next to you to be looking at you, scratching your nose, or doing something that's probably not really nice, right? So the way the case is going right now is the car is not considered, while you're in the car, it's not considered to be as private as in other location. You're not necessarily walking down the street, right? Because I can take a picture of anybody I want. If you're walking down the street, I don't need to let you know. I can publish that picture. That's already established. The car, yes, you are in your car, but there are windows all the way around you. And maybe there are no windows, right? If your top is down. And so there is less level of privacy expectation in the car. Also, when you're in the car, chances are you're not taking a shower, you're not doing anything where you really, really, really expect privacy, right? So it's less of a concern in the car. Now, clearly, there's marketing and all this kind of stuff that goes behind it. There's the legal portion that is not as scary as more of the marketing part, right? So people want to keep their privacy. There's going to be a lot of, Twitters and X's and all the social media just entertaining people.
Yeah.
But I would think it's less of a problem in the car. Now, who owns the data? This case, by the way, was related to knowing your location. Your phone knows where your location is. So if the car knows where your location is, it's not additional. But your phone location is owned by one company. Your car location is owned by another company. So now that piece of data is owned by two different entities. And as we talked about, if I get something out of it, it's been proven over the years that as long as I get something for free, I'm okay to give up some privacy. But if I have to pay for a service and I have to give my privacy, then there's going to be a lashback, more of a psychological and social lashback versus a legal lashback.
Yeah, and you mentioned people, Efren. That's an interesting point, because we also notice that this is a quite personal topic, right? Everybody has like different thresholds, what you're willing to share, but also from cultural point of view, it's a big difference. If you look at customers in China, in the US, or in Europe, there are very different expectations and willingness to share data.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, certainly. And it's been a big issue in voice since we started using smart speakers and so on. This whole issue of data privacy. I don't think it's ever gone away. It's maybe different in the car, but it's never gone away. And there's still things to be solved here.
Yep. And it really is just a question of the value the consumer gets in return. I think somebody texted in a comment that they'd never use a service that advertised to them. And, that's not true. You go to websites and you see ads already, and those websites are free services and they make their money with ads. So it's really a question of value.
Yeah. And everyone's different, as we say, culturally, but also, everyone is willing to give up some data. Well, not everyone, some people are willing to give up a lot of data, some people no data, and it's all very different.
Well, and whether we're willing to or not, we're giving up data.
It's very true.
It's
very
being
true.
collected
Yeah.
everywhere.
It's very
The
true.
automotive market's probably, I think Mozilla did a study of privacy, and they found that automotive was one of the least secure areas for your privacy,
Okay. Okay.
with the exception of BMW.
Hopefully.
Of
I
course.
would have said the same. Yeah.
Good. Excellent. So let's move on to the next part. So we'll talk a little bit about something a little bit different, but very much related. Let's talk about in-car experiences. How can automakers leverage voice technology and in-car experiences to create new revenue streams? I'm thinking things like subscription services, in-car commerce, adverts, I guess, but also things like personalized entertainment as well. What role will voice play in enabling these kinds of opportunities? Over to you first, Roman.
Yeah, I believe that we will have another transition that the voice assistants in the car will turn from assistants into companion. I think this is really what we will see in the future. And I think that ours will be the best in the vehicle, but also we might integrate other companions. Maybe you want to bring along your companion into the vehicle. And I think the biggest challenge here to improve this and to leverage this will be openness. I think we need much more collaboration. We mentioned agentic already. I think there will be a world where you have much more services and agents integrated, and this will just allow you to do much more during your times in commute, while maybe even your car is driving. And this will just give you time back, basically, because you can run errands on the go using voice. You can order stuff using voice. You can organize your day using voice, whatever. There will be many applications and services that you will bring to the car. And I think then, again, circling back to my first point, if you turn that into very good products, I truly believe that people will be willing to pay for that, because time is very valuable. And yeah, we touched the topic already a little bit. I don't believe in advertisement, but of course, there is a very thin line between advertisement and recommendations. And I think that's what we are going to see. Todd, I think you have made an excellent example. But then again, there's also very unique attributes to the car. For example, I think it's a very special space also to consume media because it's enclosed environment. You have time on your own, so this also opens up opportunities. And yeah, I think there's lots of things to discover and to leverage in the future.
Yeah. I guess there'll be lots of new things that happen that we don't know about today, but there's some obvious maybe things that could happen. Yeah, well, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that also becomes part of the experience, right? So today, if I want to drive a BMW or a Mercedes, I expect a certain level of experience. I expect certain leather, certain color, certain steering wheel controls, and so on and so forth, right? If I'm driving a Yugo, okay, as if it can make noise, that's okay. It can go over all the bumps and I feel them, and that's okay, right? This is going to become part of the user experience. If I spend 100 grand on a car, I'm really not expecting this car to advertise to me. I'm expecting this car to help me, and I'm willing to pay for it. On the other hand, if I get a $2,000 discount on a Yugo and it's going to annoy me while I'm driving to work, you know what? I made that choice. Right? It's nothing against Hugos, by the way. I just happen to remember it. But the idea is it's not just about the leather and the chrome and all the stuff you expect in the car. This is going to be that new experience where you either like your car because the way it's interacting with you, or you don't like your car because the way it's interacting with you.
Yes.
That becomes part of the brand.
You mentioned a $2,000
much
discount if you buy the car. We have a customer that's giving away televisions. They're called free telly. And you give away the television and the user gets some ads, and hopefully there'll be more and more targeted ads that become more useful. But certainly it's back to what we've been talking about all along, that trade-off with value. What's really unique and special about the car is that is the most captive audience in the world. You know, if you think about watching TV in your living room, you can walk away. If I'm on my cell phone, I might set it down and go play one of my guitars. But when you're in the car, you're there and you're captive, and voice is the best user experience to interact with. So all the things mentioned, you know, becomes not just interesting and valuable, but almost necessary to make productive use of your time.
Yeah, totally. And there's lots of room for differentiation because having a service in a car is one thing, but really integrating it nicely and in a way so that it's, you know, functioning properly and giving you benefits and so that it's not annoying you, that it's not bothering you, and that it feels good. This is also a way of, yeah, premium, I would say. There's lots of room, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Good, excellent. So let's move on to the final topic, I guess. Let's talk about SDV, software-defined vehicles. So as these become more prevalent, we kind of expect that voice is going to be playing a much more central role in controlling things, you know, infotainment, navigation, cabin functions, and so on. So what innovations are going to be critical to supporting this transition? You know, how can automakers and technology providers collaborate to ensure that voice technology becomes an indispensable part of the in-car experience, you know, over the next sort of 5 to 10 years? Over to you first with this one, Todd.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the benefits of a voice assistant that really knows you and has a lot of intelligence about who you are and what you like. So technically, you know, in a multi-user system like this would require biometric IDs such as voice and a user profile that goes with it. So you can have a camera that knows the person, or you can have a voice ID in the wake word. All of those technologies are here today. What's not really here today is sort of a user profile that I take with me wherever I go. Because the way for my personal assistant to really know and understand me, I don't want a car assistant that knows certain aspects of me but not others, and a shopping assistant that knows other aspects. I want one thing that I own and that I take with me, and the devices that I enter can use that information to my benefit. And so that's really the direction that I think things are going to need to move.
Yeah.
You know, another thought, the webinar's on voice, but one of the technologies that Sensory has that we're all of a sudden getting a ton of interest and traction is sound identification within the car. And we're doing things like emergency vehicle detection. We're doing horn detection. You know, people like the ideas, like if there's horns that go off, I might as well turn my camera on and see what's going on. And you don't want to have to press buttons to do all those things. You want them automated. So some automation can come from voice commands, but other things can come from sounds.
Yeah. I think it's great that you mentioned this openness again, because I think that, you know, there's like a much bigger topic to it. I think that we really need to change the way how we are working, how we are forming alliances with other companies, how we share data and what data we share. I think this is very important for the product. But also from a organizational point of view, we have to start thinking differently. I think we need to claim more ownership. I think I'm very lucky that at BMW we are doing this. And I think that especially for voice technology, the time where you can just buy something off the shelf and you just do some integration and just, you know, put it in somehow. These times are over. We need to have much more understanding in detail on ASR, wake-up word. We need much more ownership of the whole technology to be able to adapt to certain markets, to certain needs, and to kind of make this magic happen when you have a very good integration of services and technologies. I think this will be this is key, and yeah.
Yeah, as
Question.
to go back to the original question that Peter asked, how does SDV and AI work together? It's almost a requirement to have SDV for AI to work properly. You need to have access to all the data in the car. right? So with the new SDV, you have access, and pretty much all car companies are going towards an SDV with high performance compute. You have a central computer and you have zonals, right? So all the zonals will collect all that data, send it to the HPC high performance computer. That's where the IVI and the ADAS typically will sit. And that's where all the processing will happen. And then anything that goes back out can go back over that network. So it's almost a requirement to have SDV to be able to get that advanced AI.
I
And
think we
of course,
don't.
voice will be part of it.
I think that's
One of
not
the
debatable. Yeah.
one of the questions from the audience kind of fits into this segment here. That the question is, any plans for air cabin quality sensors that can use the data to alert the driver and then ask if adjustments are desired with voice? So I think it's this thing that we're talking about right now, and building those sensors in and then just having a voice kind of interaction where the car can say, hey, it's getting a little muggy in here. You want me to, whatever. That's the question.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, this was a concept back when I was at Ford. We actually had that technology during the COVID pandemic, right? Where we were trying to sense how bad the air is in the car and try to either clean it, use it UV in this case, beyond just make it cooler or warmer or more humid or less humid. So we definitely looked at that technology, and that will be part of the overall user experience in the car, right? We talked earlier, if the camera looking at the driver feels that he's hot or tired or something, it can query, preferably query versus doing automatic changes, and then change the temperature, change the humidity, change the cleaning of the filter, maybe add smell or take out smell or do something to be able to make it more comfortable for the passengers in the car.
Yeah.
Earlier we talked about many advantages of hybrid, and this fits right into it. The idea that a car can sense something, give the user a query, and the user responds. There was an article that just came out about people saying thank you to their LLMs and how much money it costs to send that thank you to the cloud, get it processed, then send a response back. So there's this kind of thing like, do you want me to turn up air quality control? And I say yes or no, or please turn it on. Doing that in the car saves so much money and time from going off to an LLM to do it. And even you really don't want to go to a small language model in the car. Even that is going to start burning things up. A small language model is going to heat up those processors.
There's kind of sorry, Ron, were you going to add?
No, I was just about to say that you want to be nice to your AI, right? So that it's in the end nice to you when it comes down to that.
Yeah.
No, but I think it's an excellent example of context awareness. Like we talked about this earlier, that the more the system is aware of your surroundings, of the passenger state, the more intelligent it becomes, and the more meaningful and useful use cases you can develop, or even the system can come up by those use cases itself. So this is a very good example, and I think it's not far-fetched, to be honest.
And it raises the importance of cognitive arbitration to decide what model do I want to send this off to. One of the common techniques for LLMs to be smaller is this mixture of experts. So it's not one giant model, it's a few different experts. And deciding whether to send that to a cloud expert or to an on-device expert or to an on-device micro-language model that's deterministic, and that kind of decision is super important.
Yeah. So there's a question in the chat again that's kind of related to this, and it's a reasonably simple question, I guess, but difficult to answer maybe. Do you see a world where there'll be no wake-up words? So assistants listening all the time. It kind of goes back to that thank you part of it. Maybe
absolutely. Jeff, I'll answer this because Sensory's been doing wake-up words, and we kind of invented the wake-up word. We did the first wake-up words for most of the companies that use them. And we've got really advanced techniques for doing that. And we definitely see a world where wake-up words are not always needed. Now, I see a world where they will always be sometimes needed. And what I mean by that is we're working on this thing called smart wake words, where we have all these different parametric settings that we can do manually right now. Jeff showed one of them where you can not require a wake word for a short period of time. But if we could intelligently adjust that parameter and other parameters like noise and accents and cameras looking at people, what we really want is to be able to communicate with people the way we communicate with each other. So if we were all in a room, I might look over at Roman, you're in my bottom left corner, so I'm looking down there now, and that might clue you in that I'm talking to you. If I'm in a room alone and I just start talking, that could clue an assistant that I'm talking to it because nobody else is there. So there's a lot of information available and sensors available that can help decrease the use of wake words, but there's always going to be situations where they're needed. We've seen a lot of the LLM demos where they pretend to have wake words, but they're actually hitting little buttons with their hand to turn it on and off. Well, they needed a wake word.
Yeah, I also think this is going to happen. And Todd, perfect example, if you own the technology, right? As you know, we do, thanks to you also. You can just simply enroll wake up words, you can change them, you can fine tune it. But also, again, like you said, you can tie in other clues. And I also think that there will be always a wake up word, but we see lots of scenarios where you might do that differently or change that. Also, if you think about people looking at screens and so on. So there's lots of, again, contextual awareness that you can use to improve a use case. And if you have the control over the technology and you have talented people that can work on it, you can do amazing things.
Yeah. In fact, the example earlier of the pollution control and air purification, that the optimal solution for that is a set of wake words. You really want to listen right after that kind of question for a very limited set of commands that can be spoken, and it's essentially the same keyword spotting technology to do it in the most optimal and noise robust way.
The wake word partially is more of a human-machine interface. People are concerned about Alexa or whatever always listening to you. So that's initially why the wake word was invented. But there's a Chinese car with a little head sitting on top of the dashboard. And if I can just look at it and ask a question, then it knows I'm talking to the car, right? If I look sideways, I'm talking to my wife. If I look in the rearview mirror, I'm talking to the kids in the back, which is how humans behave. So if you can put that little face right somewhere in the car, and when I want to talk to the car, I don't just talk to this big piece of metal around me. I just talk to this little character that's representing the car.
Yeah,
right?
and there's a whole lot of sensors. We talked about cameras, but you could have IR sensors that sense presence, that turn on a wake word or not require a wake word. There's a lot of different software approaches, programmed approaches for when do you want to listen and when do you want to use a camera and when do you want to use touch. And there's optimal solutions that will be different for each person.
Right.
So everyone, we could continue, I'm sure, for another hour if we were able to, but we're actually at the end of the hour. There's a few more questions in the chat, but I think we'll probably leave them for now. Hopefully, maybe we can get back to people directly with some of those answers. So unless there's any burning things that anyone else wants to say.
No, I just wanted to touch this one comment is actually quite interesting. We keep thinking, I get in my car, I go to work, I buy coffee on the way. One of the questions is public servants, right? People who work in their car, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe all of us around this conference room here, we just use the car to go to work or grocery stores or whatever. But there are a lot of people who use their cars for business. And this is where I believe voice and all of this AI stuff will be a lot more useful for people who are actually working, right? You don't need to pull over with a big screen if you're a policeman or something. You have to do all of this work, right? So the whole work environment will become even more useful than the typical consumer user experience.
Yeah. About getting time back. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Excellent. Well, thanks, everyone. Thanks to all the panelists and speakers and so on today. And particularly thanks for everybody joining the webinar. We're at the end of our time. again, thanks very much, and goodbye, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you all.
Everyone,
Bye-bye.
appreciate it.
So.
Bye.